Very good morning to you all present here. Our Managing Trustee Architect Abani Das Sir and Daksha Das Ma'am, CEO Architect Sahil Das Sir, Principal Sir Digambar Das, all the respected dignitaries, our faculty members and our dear students. I am Architect Jayashri Talukdar, currently working as Assistant Professor of Guwahati College of Architecture and Planning, and it's my privilege to welcome you all. We all know that it's no secret that the COVID-19 pandemic has forced all of us to make substantial changes to our daily lives. But this September, with the start of the college year in offline mode, seemed to be more overwhelming than ever before. One could observe the mixed feelings of excitement and joy among the students and also all the faculties. And it is our privilege to host a webinar with all our beloved students sitting around us after a long time. I once again welcome you all. And with this, I would like to request our principal sir, Architect Digambar Das sir, to address the participants and to give an idea about the objectives to be discussed in the webinar. Sir, please.
Architect Abani Das, Chief Managing Trustee Diksha Das Madam, Architect Sahil Das, CEO, especially invited respectable guests for speaker and speaker, Architect Professor Dhiraj and Salhotra, invited guests from inside and outside the state of Assam, my faculty and students of Guwahati College of Architecture and Planning. Very outset, I thank who is participating in this webinar. As you know, last 2 years, due to COVID, our life has changed almost in all aspects, including education, teaching and learning. We also have started to online classes in learning. It has been observed that certain things that require practical laboratories, studio classes, site visit, studies, educational tour have suffered a lot. By the grace of God, this year in September, we have started our college offline mode with renewed josh and hope. To encourage our students and faculty, Guwahati College of Architecture is organizing a series of webinars under the banner GCAP Insight. The first episode of this webinar, GCAP Insight, will be Dramatic Architecture. That will be presented by our respected speaker, Professor Architect Dhiraj and Salhotra, Principal, Thakur College of Architecture and Planning. He will throw some light on dramatic architecture in his perspective. I'm sure that will be very much educative and beneficial for the student and the faculty. Also, I hope that attendees will increase their periphery of knowledge in the ocean of thoughts. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Dear attendees, it is our honor to have a very renowned speaker today among us. Professor Architect Dhiraj Salhotra, sir. Sir, on behalf of entire GCAP family, I welcome you to this virtual meet today. Please allow me to give a short introduction of yours in front of all. Professor Architect Dhiraj and Salhotra sir graduated in architecture in the year 1996, and since then he has practiced as professional architect as well as being a hardcore educator and academician. Sir has around 2 decades of teaching experience and is currently heading the prestigious Thakur School of Architecture and Planning, Mumbai, as the principal. Sir has masters in arts with specialization in the subject of history. He has published several articles and research papers on the subject of historicism and research methodologies in journals and magazines of national recognition. Sir has a master's in architecture and his area of research is extensively based upon identifying design pedagogy and creating a social response while attempting to demystify innovative ways to adopt appropriate methods in managing urbanization. Sir has presented on sustainability and humanizing agenda in several national and international conferences and seminars too. Sir is an excellent team person, voracious reader, and performs by leading from front. He believes in the policy of live and let live as a source of inspiration and constant endeavor towards enabling studies in developing sustainable and humane habitats. His communication skills and ability to handle complex tasks with ease and patience makes him a mentor, philosopher, and a good guide. He advocates staying updated and informed as the policy for overall growth and excellence. He recommends Alchemist by Paulo Coelho and Jonathan Livingstone Seagull by Richard Bach as a must read for all his students. Sir, we welcome you all. And with this, I would request our MD Sir, Architect Abonidas Sir, to welcome the participants and our guest of honor and also to share valuable words with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. It is really pleasure to be into this webinar, which is very important for the day. And outside, I must recognize our principal that this principal and our faculty members, they have done hard work to organize this series webinar. So I hope this will go very well. What about our speaker of the day, Dhiraj Salhotra? He's a dynamic person, and I know him for many years. Whenever I say something, he never says no to me. That's a great quality of him. Also, I see in the screen our advisor, architect Bishta Datta. He is also there, and all the faculty members, guests, students, and ladies and gentlemen, those who have attended, those who have joined this webinar. Just to say a few words on this webinar, introducing the webinars in today's time. In today's time, online learning process has become indispensable for higher education in India. Digitization offers some of the best opportunity to provide the students and better source of learning, and webinar is one of the such tools that helps us improve accessibility and outreach. Because if this tool would not have been there, we don't know what would have happened to this point of time and in terms of education. We do not wish to deprive our students from enhancing their knowledge, and hence we have planned this webinar from 24th September for the next 6 weeks till the end of the October. During this webinar, prominent personality from the field of architecture will speak in different topics. I'm sure that their experience and knowledge will definitely give a boost to our career, our students, to our students, the students and faculty of our college. I request you all to make a best opportunity to provide to all the order of develop your skill, which will definitely help you all not only in your studies but also your future in the long run. It is my immense pleasure to start this seminar with an eminent architect from Mumbai, who is a principal of Thakur College of Architecture, Professor Dhiraj Salhotra. He is a motivator, guide, and philosopher for our faculty and students of our college since past many years. I'm sure that this motivational talk of dramatic architecture will give a good insight to the architecture as a profession at large. I'm very sure and hopeful that we will incite you all for a holistic approach towards life. So I request Dhiraj Salhotra to go ahead with the program. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for your welcoming address.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your
Yes, you want to say
encouraging words. Yeah. So now I would like to request our honorable speaker, architect Dhiraj Salhotra, sir, to share his valuable thoughts with us. And also I would like to request to all and everyone present here to share any queries related and thoughts of yours in the chat box for smooth discussion in the interactive session with our guests of honor. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, and how are you? Welcome.
Great to see you back.
Yes, here, same here. Looking forward to hear the dramatic part of the architecture. This is the first time I'm hearing dramatic,
Good morning, all. We will start today's session. And it's a very nice theme that has been taken up by GCAP. It is insight. So really, this series that you are going to attend is going to be pretty insightful for all of you. So the topic today is dramatic architecture. A lot of ways in which we can create drama in architecture, and that comes from how we make use of this element. I have chosen this particular slide which is there, and now we will get into the details of how this particular structure becomes dramatic. Now, is this building dramatic? And if it is dramatic, then let us know what makes this happen. So firstly, it is these enclosing walls which are around it. The straight flight of steps which lead you or direct you towards the building. And then there is a glazing right at the point where your pedestrian walkway touches the building. It is a dart. It's a dart point where the glass is given. And now the cover of the sky. So in this particular manner, drama is created by all these elements which come together. For example of this building, how this drama planned or how is this drama created. On the right side, you can see the cuboidal box. This is the cuboidal structure which is there. This is the side wall, and this is the main entry. Probably the photograph is from the point of the entry. And there is a right-hand side. There is a badminton court which is kept at a lower level, and then this is flight of steps which leads you towards the structure. Let's decipher this further. So this is the main axis. And then this building also has a secondary axis, so which is juxtaposition of two planning axes which is done in the design, and that is what is imparting drama to this particular build form. Now let us see how is the pedestrian experience, how is the experience of the person who is walking, what is the idea behind it. Now when you see there is a lot of appreciation space, there is a lot of distance between the build form and the main entry, and this is the wall which is giving the sense of direction, blocking the view from one side. And it does in a very unique manner, this particular wall. So as the person starts approaching from the lower level, the vision is blocked on one side. And as he steps up, gradually the landscape around starts to come out. So that is how drama is created in this particular spectacular piece of architecture. So and then this is the point of entry. It is a split. It's a narrow split entry which happens at the point P, which you see here. On the left side, you can see that image. So that is a split which has that glass facade, or the main entrance door of the building. So this is the point of entry. Now another interesting feature of this design is the square cutout remotely placed on the wall, very caringly placed, so that when the sunlight comes out of it in the early wee morning hours, it creates a glow. And that is where the climate responsiveness and architecture comes together to create a drama of shade, sun, shade, and light. Now this is the detailed cross-section of the building. This is the main axis. This is the section which we referred to first. Now let us see how that vista is created. Now this is the indoor courtyard, and this is the portion from where there is a swimming pool which is created, and how that vista works. You can see that visual lines, the sight lines of the user are considered to frame the vista at this particular juncture, which is below the sectional space of a room above. And then that frames the view of the water body and the landscape further. So at this point, this is the framing. So this is a visual frame. This is the visual frame which you will find very commonly used in buildings of Charles Correa and Vividoshi. They have explored this idea of creating visual frames, and which are very popularly called as vistas. Framing views is called as a vista. So this is how a vista is created in architecture. So this is a standpoint, and you can imagine this is the kind of view the person is able to get. So this is the floor line, the pool, the position of the eye level. So when these elements come together, we are able to create a poetic scenery, and this poetry of architecture is what creates drama. Now, how can we create dramatic architecture? Now, this is a question that many students would have. Now, we have seen an example how it is done. Now, let us understand how this dramatic architecture can be achieved. If you are having pencil and paper, you can note down. I am going to share with you 10 basic tips on how to dramatize architectural spaces. The first tip is to understand cone of vision. Whenever we are looking straight or towards a wall, that is this line, straight line, our cone of vision is 15 degrees above and 30 degrees at the ground. So once we understand the cone of vision, once we know the cone of vision, we would know how to frame spaces, how to create the vistas. So your sight line of visibility is the first factor. While designing, we must keep in mind that what is the cone of vision and how we are going to frame these spaces. This is the tip number 1. Note it down. We'll go to the next tip. Next is where we place the fenestrations. How we place the fenestrations, it basically determines how the landscape would be viewed. It is not essential that the full landscape must be visible in a single going. How you frame it, at what level is the window, what is the dimension of the window, whether it is a slit window, whether it has a sill level, whether it is a raised window. So all these are various consciously decision on dramatizing the space of architecture. So this is capturing the visual frame is the next second tip that one has to keep in mind. So depending upon the height, location, width, how that particular space is going to be experienced. If it is for a single person viewing window, whether you are going to peep, whether you are going to watch, whether you are going to sit and enjoy. All these 3 adjectives are dependent upon what is the size of the opening, where you have placed it, and how you have managed it in the interior space. If there is a small toddler or a small kid, definitely the one on the right hand side at the bottom becomes an essential element. If we are not providing the small window at the bottom, the kids are denied of the outdoor view. I think this is one thing which designers must take care of. So this is one of the elements, that is play of fenestrations. So capturing the visual frame is very essential. You can see here in this particular example, there are 2 blatant examples. One on the left, which is showing you a framed view of a castle which is far away. This is a distant vista. There is view of the landscape on the left, and then there is the view of the sky, which is partially viewed. So the wall becomes like a photo frame. Wall becomes the photo frame for capturing these vistas. So play of fenestrations is very important. So instead of just placing windows in a sequential manner, one after the other, or just placing them on the walls, you can decide the visual frame that you want to offer in your design. So that can add drama to the site. But first you have to be there on the site, see the sight lines, how you can play with it, decide the size of the opening, then place them. Articulation of view frames. Here you can note down this book that is by Rob Creer. Rob Creer has a book which is on architectural composition. If you go online, you just have to Google robcreer.in or .com. You will find this ebook available for the online reading. This book is the PDF copy is very easily available. You can download it, but definitely go through this particular book on architectural composition, because it offers you different types of solutions on how is the effect of space and vista and position of the openings. It's a complete reference manual that you can go through, say one page a day. Also, if you go through this book, it has enough information for helping you in how articulation of visual frames is done. I've just taken 3 examples from that book. You can see that how that ledge on that particular window in example 1, the framing columns and right at the entry, or framing columns at the end of the vista, so that you can frame the view in a particular manner are done. So these tips are given by Rob Creer. Rob Creer has several books, but first thing that you can pick up is architectural composition. You have noted down, hopefully, yeah. So the 3rd tip is done. Next, important thing is play of levels. If you refer to how Corbusier has talked about the modular man, the levels are very important for us. You must know the rule of 3 inches. The 3-inch rule, that is plus 3 inches, 3 inches and 3 inches, 6 inches, then 1 feet, 1.5 feet, then 3 feet. So in the multiplier factor, if you just use this 3 inch as the baseline, and then you will understand the various levels. If you provide something like this or this level, then automatically people are going to use it for sitting purposes. Moment you put it up to this first waist level height, people are going to put their hand and stand like this 4th figure here. If you put it up, the wall goes slightly higher. The manner in which people are going to place their elbows over it is completely different, and then like that. So this height of walls, half walls or low parapet walls, or the railing components, the way in which the height is fixed changes the experience of the user. In fact, there is a very important proverb where the handle of a building is called as the handshake of the building. So if you understand, the handle of the building is the first handshake the building gives you. So how important it is to design the handle of building. If you refer to a book of architectural details by Le Corbusier, you will find that every element that he designs in this building, he also places a lot of importance on all the surfaces which meets the user, especially the door handles and railing. The next is impact of levels, whether the space overlooks an area or the space is getting overlooked. This is very critical. So unless there is play of levels which are well thought of, the level difference must be such that either it should give you an opportunity to be overlooked, or it should give you an opportunity to look over certain space. And the best part of human emotion is the most favorite pastime of why people go to mall or why people go to marketplaces is they go to watch. And then you must have spaces for them. If you give this, then it creates a sense of belonging and social inclusiveness. So this is the impact of use of levels. Yes, there must be hierarchy of spaces. Hierarchy of spaces in terms of how that person is going to view down, or how the view is going to be across, under space, and the spaces outside. So how the overall degree of enclosure is. It depends on the levels of the surfaces. We must play, lot of play is possible in articulation. How this could be completely expressed. Also, it could be dramatic. You climb up to one level, then you go to another, and then you climb up further. So this makes the journey of a person from one level to another level interesting. So depending upon the scope of the project, the kind of placement where you are going to use these steps, you can make a choice of steps. Many times I have seen architecture students just taking up an offset command of 300 mm and just putting steps 1, 2, 3, 4. and they count the levels, and then once the level is reached, the game is over. So instead of that, you can spend some time in thinking about articulation of steps or staircase. I'll show you some other examples. These are numerous other ways in which the steps can be articulated. It could be a straight line, dog leg, open well, half well, L shape. Even when you are navigating a plinth, even if you are navigating a plinth having 2 steps and then longer or wider steps, then this particular space becomes a space for gathering. If you are designing a bungalow or some public space, all these are very critical decisions. So we have to articulate steps, because this is the portion where every user is going to pass through. So you have to be very careful while addressing this. There is a plethora of choices, and a lot of choices from which you can pick up the kind of steps. So when you are designing, when you have a steps or a staircase to design, take a pause, take some time, make up your mind which kind of a staircase you want to go for, and which is the most appropriate one, most suitable one. And I bet that every user will be touched by the kind of staircase that you are going to take up, because this is the most personalized travel time that a person is having while you are navigating a staircase. Yes, degree of enclosures is very important. Many times, if you refer the bottom left image, you will see that single pillar creates the degree of enclosure which is required. Imagine this particular space, if it is without any pillar over there, the space will just simply flow out. Similar effect is there when you have an overhead plane, it creates a shaded space. Then the degree of enclosure has to be very well understood. What is the impact of 2 walls, one wall and one column, one wall and 2 columns? So this permutation and combination of massing, now it is not necessarily, it's orthographic projection of your plan only. Only the plan projections are not required. Sometimes you can add a wall, sometimes you can just add a column, a freestanding column, or a beam or a pergola, and frame a visual space. So this creates a transition between your interior and exterior. We will take a pause here, and I will ask a question. Do you find this building, this site dramatic? So many of you feel yes, some of you may feel no. But if you ask me, except the avenue, the way the path is meandering, it's very interesting. But a very obvious location for architecture, very obvious location of that particular monument on top is something which makes it monumental, but it doesn't make it dramatic. Had it been dramatic, then probably you have to make it shift away from that particular top location. So think about this. Think about this image. Is this dramatic? What makes it dramatic? Or if it is not, one element which I find that it is not dramatic is this position. Probably if it has been off center, yes, it would have added to the drama. It is a very obvious location. So it brings us to the next important tip, which is the big decision, how the built form is placed on the site. Now this is the view. This is the view of the site. I'll show you the path of access. Now this red line demarcates, if this is the path that you have taken, you can imagine that how this vista, when your journey starts from the point A, I'll go back, this point A to point B. Now this journey becomes interesting. Suddenly the building emerges in front of you, and then you walk around the site, it will appear to rotate, and then it will vanish from your vista. And then again the second journey will start when you start climbing up, and gradually it will emerge from the ground. So this is very important, how you locate a building on the site. So the context of the program is a critical aspect. Siting of the built form, how you place the building on the site. It's a big decision. It's a big decision on where you place it. Now, same built form. If you have a previous design project, what you could experiment is to take the same building and try and locating it on different positions on the same site. If you place it straight, try to place it at 45 degrees. Try to place it one corner. Try to bring it in front. And then you visualize your model. You will realize that changing the position or siting of the built form on the site completely transforms the view or transforms the overall effect of the building and site. So this is a very important tip, tip number 7, that one has to keep in mind, which is context of the program. If I have to place a monumental piece, takes a center stage, If it is something which has to merge with nature, then it will merge in the landscape, it will hide itself. Solar response, then you will have another kind of an orientation, introvert or an outward looking building. This is the play. This is the tip number 8. Is the magic. Very few architects have great command on it. One of them definitely is Le Corbusier. How much soever you study Le Corbusier in terms of lighting is not adequate, because in his buildings he's a master of lighting, natural light in design. There is a particular statement by Corbusier. He says that he knows how to make human faces glow. It's a very strong statement because he has the control on the lighting. So light, he plays a very important role, and especially if you study most of his buildings, he does a very good light and play shade on the entrance of the. I'll show you some examples of how entrances have to be designed. Now, in entrances, just don't keep an entrance wall just like that. Play with it. Either you pull it out, create a porch, or recess it back. That is what is adding drama. Keeping plain entrances is something which doesn't create any interest. So play of entrance is very important, because this is the first impression that the person entering the campus or person entering any premises will remember. So the entrance is heart of the design. Now the massing, and there are several examples of how build forms. You can see on the right side, house at Stabio, how Mario Botta has taken a small entry but created a gateway for the entire mass of the building. So irrespective of the size of the entry, maybe it's a small entry, which is the physical requirement, but see the kind of noise that particular entry has made. It has escalated its size. It has anticipated its size to the scale of the build form. So this is what needs to be understood. Managing the monumentality, managing the scale of the entry. So that adds the drama. And nobody can miss it because this is the main entry. So always pay attention to that particular aspect. Several other examples. This is Villa Savoy, Secretariat. Again, deep recessed shadow. Maybe the main entry may be a small opening, but see the kind of shade, gap which is created. This is an interesting picture. It is this is the Robbie House. It is one of the most photographed buildings in the world. So many people take photographs. Whenever they come back, I ask them, where did you see the entry? In fact, this is a building in which the entrance is not visible. This is the most photographed building, and the privacy of the user is not affected, because Frank Lloyd Wright, I will give you a challenge. Try to locate entrance in buildings of F.L. Wright. You have noted the challenge? Try to find out the entrance in the buildings of F.L. Wright. F.L. Wright always hides his entry to the building. You will never see a gate like gate. You will never see his main entry to the building. Even in the Robbie House, this is actually the back side of the building. This is not the front, but this is the most photographed side. You will be wondering, where is the entry located? So the entry is on the rear side. This is the portion from where we saw the image. This is the red arrow mark shows the entry. So you used to always hide the entrance of the building, because the moment a person is able to read the entry or read the build form, then there is no interest. That is what F.L. Wright believes. So this is also one of the approach of how entrance can be hidden from the main view to create the drama. Look at Corbusier. On contrast to F.L. Wright, Corbusier will make the entry as loud as possible. And look at the sheen. Look, you can see the shine on that RCC slab that he has got. RCC as a concrete, as a material, has a sheen or a shine on it. And how is it possible? This is the portion where you can see the shine. Now, he tilts the angle in such a way that the sunlight just brushes across that particular portion, just brushes across this particular canopy. And that allows for that surface to shine like a metal sheet. The concrete appears like a metal sheet. If you go there to Chandigarh, you will find that it has that sheen on it. The concrete is able to do that. And this is because of shade, light and shade that he is able to achieve. Again, an example of how entrance has to be treated. The main building is behind. This is the front solar, Bryce Solar detail which he has got. A very monumental piece of architecture. This is the plan of that building. This is the front area. This is Miller's association in Ahmedabad. And I will just demonstrate how he has done play of shade, shadow. This is the kind of light effect throughout the day. Every day you will get this light effect. The shadows will start growing up. The shadows will start growing up. So this drama is use of built form, fins, openings, light and shade. The sunlight does the job. So this is the detail. This is the fins that he has added. Very cleverly placed. The solar angles have been understood. The entrance area has been defined. And this is the kind of drama that every photograph captures. Yeah, this is one project which I want to give you all as an homework to do. Villa Maria, that is by Alvar Aalto. Not many students of architecture are a fan of Alvar Aalto. But I tell you, if you want to understand how planning is done, how concept is developed, a very robust concept is developed, you must read Alvar Aalto and his works. Alvar Aalto is one of the most pioneering modern architects and very systematic in his approach. Only drawback to his architecture is not blatantly beautiful. You will never find a form for form's sake. His buildings are highly functional, highly efficient. So as a homework, I know architecture students have a lot of work to do, but this one project is something you must make it a point to study in depth, and that is the Villa Maria project. It is not very difficult to get information on this project. You can Google, you will be able to find about it. Don't just see the images. If you see the images of this project, I'm definitely sure you will say there is nothing interesting about it. Read about this project. This is the only project that I would say one student must read. Because if you read about this project, you will know how conceptualization is done, how his architecture is great. His architecture is human architecture. So if you want to read about it, this is one takeaway exercise that I want the students to take up is explore this particular project. Next important last tip is the play of axis. If you have understood how the axis of planning must be done, then probably your game is sorted. The various ways in which planning axis can be taken, I will be sharing three ways in which the planning of axis is done, and each of them will give you an interesting result. And there are several examples of architects of how they have used it. The first and a very obvious axis is the frontal axis. We don't use this axis normally. Normally, you are not supposed to use a frontal axis. Nobody wants a building which is bang opposite or right at front. Now, this is only used for projects which are monumental in nature, public buildings or buildings of civic significance, or important buildings like Taj Mahal has a frontal axis. So this is a very strong axis, and you must use it only depending upon the scale and type of project in which you are using. You cannot use it for institutional buildings or for a school or any other. Even for residential bungalows, you must avoid blatant entry towards the building. You will find these are used for large monasteries where urban design principles, symmetrical axis. You will find the use of this axis in projects of civic significance where the formal architecture or formal geometry is used to show power. Basically, this frontal axis is used to show power. Another interesting way to develop, or one of the most interesting way I would say, is to develop a slightly tilted diagonal axis to the building. When you create a diagonal axis to the building after moving straight, it creates a movement in your experience of the building. The building will start appearing as if it has rotated itself. This is a very, what you can do is, if you have a model with you, you can just pick up the model and check that particular movement of built form. You use to tilt the axis slightly, and the whole experience of enjoying architecture would change. The use of this, you will see in Philip Johnson's glass house. Philip Johnson has a diagonal axis to his glass house. This is an example of diagonal axis to lateral plan. Even It did not mean that your building has to fit it. You can see over here, there is an example of all the buildings are perpendicular, orthographic, but your axis is diagonal. And then it gives you two sides of the building in view. Just let me go back. The biggest issue with a frontal elevation is you will see only one dimension. It appears as a two-dimensional building. The building looks like a wall. But when you give a diagonal entry, you get to see two sides or two-point perspective. So when you see a building in two-point perspective, it gives a different feel altogether. So the axis plays a very important role. So especially when you have a large plot, you will be able to plan your axis very well. Master planning, especially housing projects, how you create an experience for the person who is taking a walk. This is a very interesting axis to reach that particular structure. You can see the path goes around a mound and then it reaches there. The building almost vanishes at one particular point of time and then reappears. This is a very interesting way of developing. Again, it will depend upon project to project. If it's a small project of a bungalow where you want to create this kind of a dramatic effect that the building is vanished from the side and suddenly emerges, you can do this. This is a very interesting example. I don't know how many of you will try to visualize, but just visualize this part. Just imagine that the model is in your palm and you are able to see the eye movement of how that entire bungalow will appear to rotate. If you are moving by a car in very low speed, you will be able to see almost as the building rotates around its axis and gives you the full profile. That's the kind of experience a axis can bring into the building, into a project. Okay, so this completes part one of the session. Now I will be quickly taking you through three projects, three very popular international projects. Many of you must know this building. This is the Kaufman's house or the Polywater house of Applewright. But a lot of times this detail is not available. What was the kind of site Applewright got where he conceptualized this program and why he built it like this? So in some of the slides to follow, we will be seeing how he conceptualized this masterpiece. This is the project plan as it is today. This is the main axis. This is the plan. There is a stream, Kaufman's River, which is there. There is a stream which you can cross over to reach this particular site. So this is the point of entry. Maximum photographs you see is from point A. This is from point A that photographs are taken, and this is the driveway which goes out. It's a very narrow, very small plot. So this is how the massing is. We'll go further. Yeah, this was the original site. You can imagine this is the original site that Applewright brought. And you see that there was a stone rubble and a boulder on the site. Now, such a site, many architects would have rejected that this is not a site to work upon, or this is not a site where the project must be built. But what Applewright had to do is he had to move out of the plot. He had to build over the river and over the waterfall. And that is how he arrived at the floating terraces. I'll just demonstrate how layer by layer this project was developed. This is the first layer. He created a main entrance and he created a hearth. Hearth is the fireplace. He added a fireplace next to that stone, and that became the element of design. Then he added the upper level. This is actually the portion which is above the stilt. And this is the floating deck which went over. He had no choice. The site was only half. He could not have otherwise built on this particular site unless he could have taken cantilever on the river. This is the floor plate. And see, you can see that at various, this is the lower level stilt, and then from first floor deck flows out, and then a vertical wall which acts as an anchor or other slabs to follow. And on the right side, this is the bridge from where is the access. This is the detail of buttresses and floor plates, the terraces. You can see the thickness of the slab because of the cantilever. So he took this inspiration from Japanese tea houses, where he saw how a project from a distance appeared. Probably this was his source of inspiration for this particular project. where the Japanese tea houses were built cascading or almost cantilevering into the lake and using a bridge to access. This is a similar condition which Ethelred had for his falling waters, and this project finally was done after his visit to Japan. So probably he had visited some of the tea houses, taken an inspiration from that and translated it into this building. This is the famous Stroder house, Bauhaus, again having interlocking masses. Famous project of Corbusier, Ronsham. Ronsham is another world's most photographed building. But what makes it photogenic? Again, few principles like the approach to the build form appearing as if it is rotating around its axis. The user experience, it is almost like a hilltop site. There is a steep access to this particular cathedral of Ronsham, and the steep access is along the ridge. And once they reach the top, that is the juxtaposition of axis which he had planned. He added a curved wall over here on the right side, and that is creating the shade and shadow. This is the kind of axis. This is the approach. This is how the people will approach the church. And see, this is how concept was developed. So he marked the pathway, the user experience, tilted the wall. This particular wall was tilted so that the user experience is that they are entering from a slit on the side. Again, a dark niche or a shadow to the scale of the structure. That's the front space. And this is the axis which is pointing. This is the pointer that the building points out towards the approach. The person first view of the Ronsham that will go on the hilltop is this angle. And the building almost points out to the person who is approaching the building. And then you go around and you reach the main entrance. Now, this is the pointing. This is how he has taken the axis. The fins have been placed. Very clever piece of sculptural architecture. This is more like a sculpture. This is the inner wall details. It's a fantastic building to study on lighting design. This is how there is a small slit which he keeps between the structure and the walls of the building to create dramatic effect of light and shade. There is a curved canopy, and the light penetrates into the building through the slit, and then every shuttering which is used on that particular casting of slab creates shades and shadows. It's such a beautiful piece of architecture. Even the shuttering marks which are left on the surface of the building, they all give the shades. That's the quality in the building of Corbusier. He not only used concrete, but he allowed sunlight to do its own role. And all throughout the day, the various conditions of style will change dramatically the interior scape of the building. The next most photographed building that we would be discussing is the Farnsworth House. This is the last example that we are taking up. The Farnsworth House, again, it is quite similar to Philip Johnson's glass house, but what makes this project unique? It's on a huge site. It's on a huge site. And you can imagine this is the kind of site he has got, and see the location of the building. It's a very minuscule project. Look at the kind of axis the architect chooses. The entrance is not frontal, the entrance is on the rear side. The main view, what you get is frontal view does not have the entry. It is actually the back side of the project. The earlier design had a load-bearing construction. You can, there was a, earlier this particular project was designed as a load-bearing building. Just to give you, because many of you must have seen only the steel chromium plated columns of this particular project. Earlier it was supposed to be a load-bearing structure, but later on me Vendor decided to do it in chromium plated steel columns, glass, and see the transformation from the original design to this. So this was one decision which was taken from load-bearing to this, and this is how it is placed. This is the view person can gather from the site, standing inside the building, looking out. The changing color of landscape is the biggest USP of this particular project. He created an interactive building with the outdoors, the sight lines which framed the view of the person is inside the building. The shade is there, but the visual connectivity is continuous. This is the exterior view of the building with the deck, entrance deck, which is on the rear side. How the building enjoys the landscape, separating itself from the ground, allowing the colors of nature. The most interesting feature is the shadow of trees on the white surface. He makes use of white so that the shadow is there. Shadow can be captured on the canvas of building. So this is the result. The climatic change, the seasonal changes change the beauty of the landscape, and this becomes the most photographed building for every season. So after the presentation, how as students you would go about it, things that you can capture from here. Don't forget those 10 tips that we have discussed. Apart from this, I don't know how many of you are into reading, but there are some very easy to get PDF copies online. I'll suggest you some books that you can refer to. So you have a relaxed time and start reading them. If you get time, you should always read through this book, Analysis of Form by Lee Corbusier. And you would not believe that there is actually a book which says 25 buildings every architect should understand. I mean, this is a sign that yes, if not all the books in architecture, at least you should know these 25 buildings, which have been handpicked. And this particular edition, this PDF copy is always available. I can also share the link, and you can also receive the link online by Google search. But this is a book every student of architecture must at least go through in one of the 5 years and read it at leisurely pace. Understand one project at a time. I may assume that you may not understand all 25 buildings, or you are not interested in reading all 25, but at least know out of this 25, at least 5 buildings you should know in depth. Then probably yes, you are somewhere there. You will know how to add dramatization in architecture. And use these 10 lenses that we have discussed as tips. It will always help you in analyzing all the architecture that you see around you. There are some other books like Form, Space and Order. Many a time, student of architecture only picks this book up in the first year for basic design to understand form. But then later on, we start losing touch of this building. I tell you, if you are in the higher classes, even if you are in the planning program or on the 4th year or final year of architecture, you will have a better understanding of reading this book at 4th year and final year. Don't think that this is a book only for first year. So please pick up this book, Form, Space and Order by Francis D.K. Ching, and go through the details which are given in it. You will definitely be inspired to see all the theories that we talk about. Dramatic architecture, you can correlate in the examples which are given here. Luckily, Francis D.K. Ching has also come out with a book which is Building Structures Illustrated. You need to translate conceptual ideas to physical design. So one book is on the left side which allows you to think conceptually, and on the right side is a book which tells you how to convert these ideas to design. So use these 2 books together and you will be having a comprehensive knowledge about design methodology. Yeah, this is another book by Rob Creer. I hope you remember we talked about this same book earlier. Architectural Composition by Rob Creer. Go to his online website. You can just read that book online. You can download the PDF copy also for your reading. But make sure you possess a copy of this. Even in the cover page, you can see there are various shapes of plans and what is the kind of profile in sketch format he has given. This is one book. I hope it touches everybody's life. This is 101 Things I Learned in an Architecture School. It's an amazing book to take up and the best part about this book is it does not have a lot of text. It just have, I think, 100 to 150 words per page, a lot of illustrations, and very interactive book. It is just a coffee table book, but you must enjoy reading this, and it will make you proud that these are 101 things that as a student of architecture you must learn before you graduate from the institution. So site planning, design, pre-design research, all are integrated to one. You don't just take up a site plan and start designing. There has to be a pre-design research, then methodology, and then final design. So it's a well-informed process. And whenever I share this slide, I always pray for my students that may all become job as the architects of the future. That we are expected to do with comprehensive knowledge to back it. I'm sure this insight series that you are going to witness is going to touch upon various such aspects. Don't miss a single such session that is going to happen in future, and you will never regret, because if you miss many of the sessions, you will not have any recovery chance. It's a very nice initiative which GCAP has taken. So make most of it, and you always remember this vicious circle, which is a lifelong learning. Learning is a lifelong process. So don't forget to again go back to the basics and reboot. So we keep evolving, and the best time to evolve is only now. So don't lose this moment. I think this is the last slide, and I can pause here. I'll keep the session open for discussion.
Thank you so much, sir, for such a wonderful
lovely
presentation.
talk.
Thank you,
Lovely
sir.
presentation.
Lovely. Sir,
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Sir, in fact, as faculties and all we as faculties and students, I really believe that we have learned a new perspective for approaching a design, how to approach a design, how to look up to a site, how to plan the entrances, how to add dramatic techniques in architectural design. We have learned a lot, sir. And our MD sir also, he's never tired of praising you whenever we are a meeting. And of course, this is very true, because each and every time, sir, I hear from you, even I go through the post that you post in Facebook and all, sir, it inspires a lot. You always give something which actually allows us to learn more and more. As students also, I have been with you, sir. So it's really wonderful to be around you, to learn new things from you. And sir, we really hope that our students also get to learn a lot from this session, which is going to be continued. And we also are we are really thankful to you, sir. So we have also come up to a lot of, we have received a lot of questions, even from our faculties and students. I don't know how much it is possible, sir, but as much as it is possible, we'd like to get it clarified from you, sir. So from the student side, sir, there is a question from Niranjan. Niranjan, are you there? Or
yes, ma'am.
Sir Niranjan, please read it out.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma'am, teachers, and all present there. So my question is, what were the major implications that we can take from the interpretation of dramatic architecture? And can it be translated into something concrete and aesthetical? Like, sir, if so, how can we use or implement it in our design studio?
Okay, sometimes a student of architecture waits for a magical idea to come. Okay, and it never happens.
Yes, sir.
It never happens that way. So I always tell my students, early start. I don't know, you will not like the answer, but early start is key to a great design. So make an early start. And the student asks me what kind of a drawing he should be preparing. I tell him, draw the first poor plan that comes to your mind. That needs courage. I tell you, what is the biggest courage an architecture student requires to do? Putting pencil to paper requires biggest courage. And if you are able to take that first courageous step, first poor design, if you are able to do it, you at least put things which are in your head on paper. Why I say first poor design? Again, let me clarify. Because when those ideas are in front of you in black and white, that is the only time you are in a position to analyze it. And if it is all lingering here on top of your head, you never know what is going to appear finally. It is never going to set itself up, and you're not a plotter. You're not a plotter where is a CAD program and the needle will go across and your design will be plotted. So scribble the first poor design. Don't use AutoCAD, because AutoCAD always, at the current conceptual stage, because AutoCAD always asks you questions. How many meters? How many mm? How many this? How many that? Start with the first scribble with 6B, 8B pencil on paper. And then take lots of, don't fall in love with the first drawing that you have done. Put another tracing on top. revise that idea. Put another tracing on top, revise that idea. Freeze that design stage. Freeze that design stage at the earliest. Then develop the design. I will always give you an example. Deep dive. There is a word we always use, deep dive. Deep dive into design. What does the deep dive mean? You ask a scuba diver. Okay, when he goes diving into the water, he goes to 1 meter, 1 meter, 2 meter deep, and he comes out. Then he goes again 1 or 2 meters for 2 hours, and he comes out. He will increase his stamina, but unless you go every single day half a meter more than what you were gone before, you will not be a scuba diver. You will not be a deep diver. So to become a deep diver, you must take one idea and go deeper into it. If you have 20 ideas and you don't know which one to take up, then you are in a soup. So take one idea, pick up one idea, develop it, develop it, develop it. Go deeper into that. Then your in-depth knowledge will increase. If you are only struggling with basic planning, layouts, positioning, then probably you will never get the charm of working deep in a design. Let it fully absorb you. Then things will happen. And keep all this 10 pointers सामने लगा के आपके सामने, and this becomes your checklist. इधर देखा और ऊपर देखने का. Have I considered this? Have I taken care of the openings, fenestrations, light and shade, axis? This checklist is a guideline for you. Any design you will be able to transform like anything. Take your previous design project. आज के सेशन के बाद साइट प्लान अलग स्केल पे रखो, लेआउट ट्रेसिंग पे रखो, बिल्डिंग का प्लान अलग रखो, और फिर उसको सुपर इम्पोज करके टर्न करो. Turn your building and site in separate positions and see what is the kind of effect that you are able to create. Take different positions for the same building on the site. You will find the building has transformed the utilization of the site. A very good example is the GCA campus itself. It has such a nice driveway, main entry, and a flamboyant curve which takes you through the port. You are experiencing almost daily basis. It's such a nice building to approach. So the approach to build form, this first lesson comes from this campus itself, and such a nice landscape to enjoy. By the time you are inside the campus, your mind is fully transformed. So these are some of the lessons which we must keep learning. And open your eyes. So much of architecture around to watch. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, we again have a question from one of our students. It's Vaishali. Vaishali, are you here?
Ma'am?
Oh, Barsha, sorry, Barsha. It's Barsha. Yeah. Barsha, please proceed.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning, sir. Sir, my question is that what is the scope of dramatic architecture in places like Assam, where most people still have the old designing sense?
Yeah, see, adding drama to a project is on the experiential architecture. I'm more on talking on experience. How is the experience of the user going around the building? And that is very critical. Dramatic architecture doesn't mean that you do something additional. Whatever you are doing, continue doing that with bit more zeal, bit more thought to it. Even if you are able to transform the kind of door handle that you are using. I don't know how many buildings of Le Corbusier you have seen, but whenever you go to Le Corbusier's building, always check the detail of door handles and railings that he has designed. He has paid personal attention to the kind of details that are executed and very meticulously executed. Especially when you go to this Mill Owners Association in Ahmedabad, that railing which he has designed is going to be there for next 200 years. That is the kind of cross-section in steel he has created. Because he was not creating architecture, he was creating monuments which were beyond his lifetime. He was a master architect, but he has left those lessons for us to pick up from. So don't have to do many things differently, but you have to do whatever you are doing in a conscious attempt. So architecture of Assam itself is pretty rich. So you just have to do that with clarity, whatever you are doing, whether the axis is perfectly placed, the vistas of the site have been captured or not, the sight lines are clear or not, a small opening at the floor level for small kids is given or not. They will be very happy if they get to see the landscape outside. Many times our sill level is announced in the first year class. Sill level is 900 mm, and all the kids in the world are denied their view of the garden. So we must have this sensitivity when we are doing a building or a housing, that this lower level openings are important. Slit windows are such pretty windows, slits. You must have, I don't know if your generation has seen Sherlock Holmes or say the detective series which were there earlier. They used to stand in the corner and watch who is coming, and there is a door, a flip door which is there. Such a nice experience of architecture and building. Yeah, so you don't have to do different things, you just have to do whatever you are doing, but with consciousness about decision.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Sir, we also have few questions from the faculties. I would like to read it out one by one. So, sir, the urban scenario of India is generally occupied with compact high-rise structures and rigid and predefined skylines and spaces. How can dramatic architecture play its role model in organizing and giving identity to these spaces?
See, there are two areas. I referred to two books. One was Form, Space and Order, and the other was Structural Design. So essentially, urban housing or urban architecture solution lies in construction technology. To build faster, so that is going to remain. But as far as selection of finishes is concerned, selection of materials for construction is concerned, selection of exterior facades is concerned, that is the area where we need to work. Indoor experience of just taking out a fin of a building slightly outside your window and adding a small flower bed. It is enough. It is enough to create that particular connect which is there. This is also, see, there is nothing called as an aesthetical detailing. There is something which is structural detailing and climatic responsiveness. So if we take our role for structural and climatic design, our role for dramatic architecture is already there, because if you respond to climate, the sun and light is going to do the needful. It is enough to create all the drama which is there. So of course, functionality, structural thinking remains the core idea in architecture to solve urban issues. We should not burden it with false facades and false aesthetics.
Thank you, sir. Sir, and there is another question. Like, how can dramatic architecture be incorporated in scenario of Indian context, where India is to be known as an amalgamation of different culture, art, and drama?
Every region has a character in India, and that is the beauty and that is the drama of each locality, each region. And if you just study the silhouettes of various buildings and you respond to that, I think the regionality is something which is already there. So dramatic, I'm just repeating the statement again, dramatic architecture doesn't ask you to do anything more or anything additional. It is only a tool to improvise already what you are doing in your daily curriculum or daily activity of architectural practice. Taking inspiration from nature, taking inspiration from local architectural language, and then developing it, then putting an insight, and then adding those 10 principles in place and creating the kind of effect which is there. It should not put an additional burden on the building. It should not be form for form's sake. It has to be highly efficient, but appreciation must be there. What texture to use, where to use, how to use the scale, geometry. Tilting a building on the site is such an important decision. Few degrees here and there, the utilization of the site changes completely. I am not against placing it orthogonal. Place it the way you are planning it. But have you tested the building, how you will place in different positions and how it is going to affect the site planning? Make it check. Finally, if I want to still decide to place it like this, do it. But at least make a check whether there is a possibility or not. So these options must be tested, because finally we are doing a project for somebody else who is going to live and survive long after you have left that project. So it has to have that efficiency, but make an efficiency check whether we have checked all the possible ways in which building is going to perform efficiently. So that is the key. Okay?
Thank you, sir. So 2 to 3 questions more. Like, sir, what are the main positive and negative aspects of dramatic architecture, and how are they influencing the cultural and architectural style?
see, there is a lot of cosmeticism in architecture. So if you just follow the simple principles of architectural design and know how to play with walls, floors, roof, you will not have to do anything cosmetic. And that is why I gave the example of Villa Maria. Villa Maria is not a beautiful building. Villa Maria doesn't have a single element of beauty for beauty's sake. The beauty lies in the user's satisfaction of this building. That is why this is a building which is not to be seen, not to be studied by drawing. It has to be read from the user's perspective and the analysis that architect has done for that project. So I think if there could be a reading exercise which all students can take up on Villa Maria's project of Alvar Aalto, it will make you fall in love with work of Alvar Aalto, and then I'm sure you will read about all his works. And the best part about all his works is all those projects have a concept, all have a conceptual idea. I have heard many times students of architecture saying, what is a concept? Even after graduating, they don't understand what is a concept. If you want to understand what is a concept and what is a working concept, then kindly read Alvar Aalto and all his books. And the best part is he has covered all the kind of projects that an architecture student undertakes in the 5 years. He has done a museum, he has done an art gallery, he has done a library, he has done residential, he has done healthcare. All spectrum of projects are there in one architect. Yes, sadly so, just like our generation is driven by beauty and aesthetics, we know more about Zaha Hadid than we know about Alvar Aalto. And he was not as flamboyant as Applewright or Corbusier. He never projected himself so much. So that is why very little is known about him. As itna canvassing I am doing about Alvar Aalto, because I am very confident this is one architect whose work every student must at least study one work of his. And I'm sure you will learn a lot.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Sir, of course, it is very true that today we have really learned a new perspective, as well as you can say a new style of approach for planning and in architecture design. So as faculties also, we are concerned to know, is there any course or any academic base that can be studied in dramatic architecture in India, or maybe any online certification course or something like that available, sir?
I think there is one book by architect Yatin Pandya, where he is talking about elements in architecture. And that is a fantastic book that as faculties we must introduce to the curriculum, and that is good enough, because it talks about what is walls, what is floor, and then it is Indian architecture. I think connecting to the various questions about regional architecture in India and how dramatic architecture is possible. I think Yatin Pandya sir has done a fantastic book on elements of architecture, and it's a must read. I think form, space and order से भी ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है कि हम Yatin Pandya sir का ये refer करें. It's a very good book. I missed out in the presentation. I'll add.
Yes, sir. Especially like in the coming first semester itself, in our second, we can add in the basic design topics also.
You divide. What you do is you divide the chapters amongst various students and let them go through and present it in their own manner.
Yes.
Then there will be an exchange.
Yes, sir.
And that book is good enough. It has got a lot of examples.
Yes, sir. Surely we will do it, and also we will be updating you for the same, sir. And thank you, sir. And so with this, we have almost come to an end of this beautiful interactive session. And before handovering it to our architect Nomi Devi ma'am, I would even like to thank sir on my behalf. And we are, as faculties, we are very grateful to our MD sir, Obani Das sir, for this beautiful opportunity sir has given to us. Sir, thank you so much. So,
yes, one thing I want to say, sir said I never say no to him. Sir का personality ऐसा है, sir को कोई ना बोल ही नहीं सकता है.
Yes, sir. Yes, very true.
So it is his personality that I have to always say yes to. And coming to Guwahati College of Architecture for a webinar, seminar is like coming home for me.
Yes.
Overwhelmed. Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Professor Dhiraj. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Nomi ma'am, please.
Thank you so much, Jashri. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Okay. I think light is not proper.
Go ahead, everything is fine.
Okay. Thank you so much, Jashri. It's an honor to have been asked to deliver the vote of thanks on today's event. On behalf of Guwahati College of Architecture and Planning, I, Architect Nomi Devi, offer our sincere gratitude to our keynote speaker today, Architect Dhiraj and Salhotra sir, Principal, Thakur School of Architecture and Planning, Mumbai, for taking out time from his busy schedule to enlighten us with such an interesting and informative session on dramatic architecture. Sir, the points highlighted by you today, like how architecture can be dramatic and how to achieve it, the importance of users' experience, the play of eye level, and how our vision plays an important role in achieving the same, importance of correct placement of fenestration for achieving beautiful typography, and the role of sun and light in it. Also, how dramatic our entrances can be. Sir, you have given us the most important examples, or should I say you have reminded us the most important examples, like the famous Falling Waters by architect F.L. Wright, Lee Corbusier's Legislative Assembly Building, Chandigarh, Farnsworth House by Mies van der Rohe, to make us understand the play of masses and much more from different parts of the globe. You have also given us the example of the split windows by Sherlock Holmes. So that was something very interesting, sir. Today's webinar will forever help us and all our attendees to think beyond regular architectural design. Sir, you have very successfully ignited our minds with such valuable words today that we will look forward to much more events where we can get an opportunity to interact with you again, sir. So thank you for being with us today and sharing your knowledge and attending to our queries with so much of patience. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank the management of Guwahati College of Architecture and Planning for letting us organize today's event. Thank you, Architect Abani Das sir, MD Dona Foundation, Daksha Das ma'am, Trustee Dona Foundation, Architect Sahil Das sir, CEO Dona Foundation, for your never-ending support and encouragement, and Architect Digambar Das sir, Principal, Guwahati College of Architecture and Planning, for your guidance throughout this webinar. We would also like to extend our sincere gratefulness to all the attendees and our students for attending today's event and for taking such active participation in it. Lastly, I would also like to thank today's host, my dear friend and colleague, Jayashree Talukdar, Architect Jayashree Talukdar, for hosting today's event. Thank you all and have a great day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.